Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of How to Blender series. Today, we'll check out some fun modifiers which we can feel free to use in our project. So, the first one I would like to mention is called the Array modifier. So let us set up a scene for it. First, I'm going to press Shift A, and let us also add a sphere, just so it looks better. I can right click and make it smooth, so again we have something like this. And then, to add a modifier, we want to go down here to the modifier properties, add modifier, and we can find it under the generate tab, or we can just search for it, type in array, and it should pop up here. So when I put it, don't worry if the sphere is black, this is just a visual glitch. What you can do is press tab once to go into edit mode, and once again to just make it look normal. And what array modifier does is it basically duplicates your object, and you can set how much times. So I can duplicate it 3 times, 4, 5, literally into infinity. And here we have the offsets. So if I wanted to just go along the y-axis, I can just put in the one here. Now it is going on in this direction. And if I wanted to just go to the y-axis, I can just type in 0 on the X factor, and you can see now it is going this way. The same goes for the Z. So I can do, for example, this, and now it is going upwards. This modifier is best combined using the curve modifier. So what I can do is first let us just type in 0 here, 1 into X factor, so we see these spheres here. What we want to do is press Shift A, and let us also add a curve. So we want to go here to the curve and add a circle curve. Of course, if you want to make it bigger, I suggest that we go to the edit mode with tab and just press A and scale the curve. That way, in the edit mode, we will not just mess with the transforms and everything should work fine. So let me just scale this a bit more. Then when we exit the edit mode, again, we want to select the spheres, and we want to just change the fit type from fixed count to fit curve. Now, we want to make sure we select the pipette or here and select the curve. That way, we're going to tell the Blender that we want this object to follow this curve. But we also want to add a curve modifier. So we want to go to the modifiers, deform, and here we have the modifier curve. When we add it, once again, we want to select the curve. And now we have something like this. It looks amazing. And of course, you can see here we have some trouble. Those two spheres are colliding, but there's a pretty easy way to fix that. Here we can choose between the relative and the constant offset. So for example, relative offset takes into account the scale of the object. So if I go to the edit mode with the spheres, I can just scale the spheres down. Then when I press tab once again, you can see the spheres are smaller, but the distance between them stays the same. So if I were to increase the distance, like this, and scale the spheres, you can see this distance here is the same. And we get something like this. It's looking pretty fancy actually. This is a pretty good modifier if you want to make chains, necklaces, even scales for animals. In other words, when you need something to be repeated, you can use this modifier. And the other one we can use is the constant offset, which literally makes it look the way it looks here. So if I was to scale this down, you can see the distance between the spheres is bigger, and it will stay bigger in this mode, which is pretty amazing. Now, if we were to delete all of this, let me showcase you another modifier that I really like to use. So for example, if you're setting up a scene and you want to quickly create diverse terrain, this is a modifier for you. So I will press Shift A and add a plane. With that plane, let me just zoom in real quick. I'm going to go into edit mode with tab. Here, I'm just going to right click, subdivide, and I can go down here. You can see here we have the subdivision tab. And the number I'm just going to increase to 10, which is now the max. And again, I'm going to select the plane again, right click, subdivide, and I can subdivide it to like 5 times, for example. Now we get something like this. The more the subdivided the plane is, the better results will look. So we'll have much more detail with this one than with, for example, this one here, which has only few polygons. So we are going to use the more detailed one, of course, and then we want to go to the modifiers, add modifier, and the one which we are going to use is called the Displace modifier, so it is under deform, Displace. And when we add it, so at first nothing changes, except it just blew up. So this is the mid level and it just makes it go up here or up here. There are a few things we need to set up. The first one is we need to add a texture which will actually displace the plane. And when I just make the texture, it will make sense what this modifier does. Again, I added a texture, nothing's happening. That is because we need to go down here to the texture properties. And then here, type, we want to select, for example, clouds. Oh, what is this? We have some hills. Here, we can see we have some settings which we can use. For example, if we change the size, if we make it smaller, it's going to look much more softer, like this. So what the modifier does, it basically just grabs the plane and displaces it. So here we have the texture, the whites are the highs, the blacks are the lows. So it just basically like you grab a paper and just tore it apart, wash it, and then you get something like this. And of course you can play with the size and completely generate it yourself. Then let us go back to the modifiers. Here we can just change the strength so we can make it stronger, or like more of a hillside and some cliffs, or just make it softer to have a nice, almost flat-like terrain. And if you're going for some mountain like this, you can see some parts are a little bit sharp, and if you do not want that, we can add another modifier. So let us add another modifier. We want to go again to the deform tab, and let us add smooth corrective. You can see here, if I was to repeat this, it gets much smoother and it ends up looking much better. Of course, you also can make sure the object is shade smoothed. And of course, you can increase the factor, decrease it, and just make beautiful terrain with it. And another modifier which we can use on a subdivided plane is the one that is actually, for me, the most fun out of those two. And it's called a wave modifier. So we want to go to add modifier, deform, and down here we have the wave modifier. And of course, you want to make sure you use this cyclic modifier. So you want to be sure the cyclic is enabled. And then if I press space, you can see something happens. What is this? Okay, let me just stop the animation. You can press space again. And now let us see what is actually happening. So down here, if I hover over, you can see I get this little cross icon. When I click and drag up, I'm going to pull out another tab. I'm going to click here and change it into Adobe Sheet, like this. And here we can see this is the animation that is playing. And this is what it is doing. And of course, there are some things we can configure to just make it so much better. First one we want to change is time and speed. Of course, we have the speed set to 0.25. What I like to do is actually make it 0.08. And then, of course, life is how long the animation will last. As you can see now, at 0, it's just going to last as much as we have here, and it's going to sort our loop around, which is amazing. And then other things I'm going to do is add a texture. So when I press the plus, I can add a new texture. And once again, we want to go to the texture properties. Now let us, for example, add the clouds. And we get something like this, which is actually pretty beautiful. Of course, once again, we can make some changes here. And we can also go to the wave modifier And for example, change the height to make a more drastic effect like this. We can change the width, which affects the area that is going to be affected by the plane. And also we have the narrowness. And also if you want it again to look much better, you can feel free to go to the modifiers and also add the smooth corrective. Let me just minimize this so we see what we're doing. Let me repeat a couple of times. And you can see it gets much smoother. And also let us see what it looks like with other textures. For example, we can add the wood texture, which gives a very interesting result. And we can also try the Musgrave texture, which is very dynamic. But one thing I'm going to do is first I'll press 7. I'll zoom in. Let us also add the wood texture. Now instead of bands, let us add some rings. The other thing we can do is add a nice shiny material to it. So I'm going to go to the material, click on new. Feel free to stop the animation for a second. And what I'm going to do is click on use nodes. Turn up the metallic. And then I'll also decrease the roughness. For the color, I'll choose like a vibrant blue color. And if we were to zoom in, we can get something like this. Let me just disable this. This is looking very nice. And like this, these modifiers are just perfect for having fun, experimenting. You can see you can get all sorts of different results. So feel free to have fun with those. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And happy blending! See you in the next one. Bye bye!